What is up to all my difference makers out there? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Grit. I'm just sitting here in the studio. I was getting ready for a meeting, and then that meeting ended up getting rescheduled. So I'm sitting here and I have some things on my mind from this morning and just from some deep studying that I've done this weekend. And so you know what? I'm gonna take this moment and jump on. So first off, I said, I said it was from this morning, but I'm going to jump in and talk about a specific incident because I made note that I want to talk about this last week when it happened. And so I was in a networking group last week, and everybody in the group gets a member minute, and there happened to be a couple guests in the group. And so we went around the group, and usually in this group, everybody does a pretty good job of staying on their minute. But this one particular person, she was new, she was a guest, and you could tell she was nervous, and she went on and she was talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And what she does for a career is one of those things that we need. We need people like her. As business owners, we need CPAs, we need accounting. However, when you're talking about it and the benefits and the features and the things that you do, it's not really all that exciting. Now, I know she wasn't talking because she came and she wanted to be the highlight speaker for the day. I knew she was speaking out of nervousness, but the thing is we all felt that. We all felt that energy. And as nice as she was, I think everybody in the group was starting to get a little nervous because as it approached the 5-minute mark and she was still going on with her presentation. And somebody in the group jumped on and abruptly was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to be the rude one. I'm going to be the bad guy. I'm going to cut this off. And he ended up cutting off the conversation. And let's be honest, he said what everybody in that room was thinking. I don't care what they say. He said what I was thinking. And we were all I was getting anxious because it was like, wow, she's going on and on. Now, mind you, we are in this group. We are not just spending our time just to give our member minutes. We're investing our time in this group to build relationships, to build connections with people with the ultimate hope that we can earn business, right? We can earn a referral, that because we show up at this group and we build these connections, they see that we are difference makers and they can go out and tell their people, their clients, their family, their friends about what it is that we do. And then that's how we get more business, right? So that's the general concept of this meeting and of this group in general. And so we're all there not just to do member minutes or to talk about ourselves, but we're there ultimately to build long-term relationships and build, most importantly, a relationship of know, like, and trust. Now, when you go to a networking meeting and you're trying to build relationships, first off, you're probably not thinking about it in this long-term mindset. Let's understand that you're not going there for that member minute, and that member minute or whatever it is that you say or do in that time that you're allowed to speak is banking on we're going to close some sales today, right? Or we're going to close some business today. We're going to get some referrals today. What this does is it builds up equity. And if you're doing it right, if you're doing it like in the compelling conversation framework that I teach in Difference Maker Bootcamp, then you're doing your introduction in a way that, one, is a framework. So it's easy, you can prepare and you're ready to do it. And so when you show up to that meeting, you don't instantly get that pit in your stomach and that anxiety of like, oh my God, what am I going to say? Because that's what happens. And when you do that, one of a couple of things happen. If you don't know what you're going to say, you're going to have that nervousness. You're probably not getting the most out of the meeting because you're not listening to what other people are saying until after you go, because you've got that anxiety inside and, kind of that fear of what you're going to say or what other people are going to think about you when you say it. And so if you can master a framework and you know exactly what it is that you're saying, it will allow you to stay on track to where you're not like this young lady that came on and talked for 5 minutes. And also it will allow you to have substance. So you're able to have a good 60-second introduction, right? And so it's something, and when I call it compelling conversation, because ultimately what we really want to do, ultimately we want to earn business, right? But ultimately what we want to do is to create compelling engagement. When we say what it is that we do, we want people to want to know more, right? We don't want to tell everybody everything that we're doing because we want to leave them with questions and to where they would want to reach out with us and have a conversation outside of that group, which is where all the magic happens. The magic happens outside of the group, no matter if you're going to a chamber event, locally here, CirrusNet, BNI, whatever it is that you're a part of, know that your ultimate goal is to want people to ask you more questions so that you can sit down and have conversations, and know that if you're going in to sell and make sales at that one event, that you're probably going to fail and that people are going to see you as that salesy McSalesperson. So here's in layman terms, if you're going on if you're going to the bar just to meet a future wife, you're probably going to have a lot of repellent on you because you're going out there and you're kind of desperate, right? You're hoping if you deem that event as a failure if you don't sell something. Well, guess what? You're not there to sell. You're there to build relationships. All right, back on track. So how do we prevent what happened in this conversation with this young lady where she's going on, and then this other person that's in the group ends up being the bad guy and makes some people feel uncomfortable, makes people automatically want to be kind to the speaker or to the young lady that went on for 5 minutes and tell her that she did just fine and that she's okay, and to help be the hero for her and make her feel good inside. Now, I've talked about this before in episodes, but what is the definition of kind? And so when we got down to the end, and it just so happened in this group, I was running a compelling conversation framework, and so giving people a way to make their introductions. And so they asked me at the end for a recap, and most people did really good. There were some people in the group that don't stay on track typically, and they were able to use the framework and stay on track and tell stories that made me say, oh, that's what you do. And that's what the compelling conversation framework is intended to do, to keep you on track, to be very clear with who your market, who your target clients are, who you work with, how you serve them, how you help them, and then a little compelling story that tells an example of one of your favorite clients or a client that you made an amazing transformation for, or and then tell that story, because that story plays out as data was sold, right? And so we were running this, and so they asked me for feedback at the end. And here's the feedback. I know everybody felt a certain way because this gentleman was the bad guy and said what everybody else thought. But I confirmed that, hey, this is what everybody else thought. And I saw the messages and saying, hey, you know what? You did great. Don't worry about it. And the thing is when we're being kind, when we're telling her she's doing great, she knows she didn't do great. She had that anxiety. She knows, we know we're not doing a great job when we're going on and we're talking and talking and talking. We just can't help it, right? And so that's not necessarily doing anybody anything, but it is making them feel like, okay, I can just show up and do it again. And at the end of the day, like I told everybody and I reiterated, is at the end of the day, whether that news was received well or not, or it was presented well, the way the flow of the meeting was going, it was true. And at the end of the day, none of us would refer business to this person. None of us would do business with this person. Just flat, nice person. I'm sure she's phenomenal at her job, but by the way she presented herself, none of us are going to refer our people to her, because this is the thing. If you're nervous and you're talking on and on and on, and you have to be cut off at 5 minutes in a 1 minute presentation, what's that going to be when I send my client to you and they're meeting with you for 30 minutes? Are they going to go for an hour and a half? And are they going to want to chew their arms off? Like, come on, guys, think about this. This isn't being mean. This is stuff that's going to go through our head. If I can't, with good conscience and good confidence, refer one of my people to this person, then they are just wasting their time and money. And so that's what I do in boot camp. Is I'm not going to just give you a fluff and be like, oh, that's great, and spare your feelings. Sometimes you need to hear the hard stuff. And to me, that's being kind. It's being kind to set you up for success. It's being kind to say, hey, you know what? That wasn't the best. I see why that happened. And here, let me put my arm around you and put you in an experience like boot camp where we can prepare you, because the fact of the matter is this was most likely her very first time ever coming out to a networking event from the role that she's in. It seemed like it was probably the first time she'd ever done anything like this. And then on top of it, it's virtual. So it's hard. I'm not picking on this person. I can see myself and I can see so many others in this story. And the reason why I do what I do and I get so excited about what I do in boot camp and teaching people the way to do this confidently, where it will pull people in for excitement. is because it is a legit problem. And I've had people tell me, oh my God, you're so amazing at doing these member minutes, or you're so good at introducing yourself. Well, guess what? I've, for the years, have had that same pain and struggle that you have. When, when I have to go last for the member minute, I'm thinking about what I have to say the whole entire time, or I have in the past, until this framework came along for me. So this is something that solved a problem for me, and it helped keeps me on track. All right. So again, hey, being kind is not necessarily just telling someone they're fine. You know what? Let's pick them up and let's give them the right guidance. And then that brings me to this morning at boot camp, right? And I have someone in boot camp who is amazingly talented. She, when she's in her zone, you can see the difference that she makes. You can see the confidence. However, a lot of times she is caught up in the things, in the circumstances, the things that she can't control. And in these things, these circumstances, these situations, they are bad, and they do seem like they're maybe rigged against her, or maybe they're not the best circumstances. But if we're focusing so much on the negative, we're focusing so much on the bad things, we can't reset and climb ourselves out of that hole. And guess what? Our mind is going to work, and it's finding more and more and more of that stuff. So it doesn't surprise me when someone says that they've been in this rut for a year and a half, because they're sitting in it, right? And as much as they say they don't want it, every single time they come to boot camp, and I'm sure every single time they're showing up in so many things in life, they're listing off all the reasons why life sucks and why life is pulling them down. And I'm not saying that none of that is valid. In fact, it's all very valid. I totally, and this is where we get into that role of wanting to be kind, is we could say, oh, we can give that person all the great, just soft advice and tell them to keep on rolling. But for me, I had to step in and interject and ask them, what do you see as your weaknesses? And we did interject into this conversation, because this person has so many strengths, but they're never going to climb out of this hole if they don't see the strengths. And even what they perceive in their mind is weaknesses or challenges or things that are holding them back are actually situations that are preparing them for greatness, or preparing them for what God's purpose is for them, right? And so I see this collection of things within this person. I see a collection of opportunities, and this person's looking at all these opportunities as negative detractors. And so if I see it as opportunity, I can't do anything. Your life isn't going to change, because that's my belief system. That's my confidence in you. I can speak it much out into the world as much as possible. I could tell this person until I was blue in the face what it is that I see, but the world isn't going to change for them until they see it. And so I had to share the Eat Faces story this morning and let this person know that they are a difference maker. But you know what? You're getting caught up and you're collecting excuses. And I'm not saying these excuses aren't, like I said, they're great reasons. But are we going to sit and hide behind those reasons and get buried behind those reasons? Or are we going to push and go through it? We got to go through it. Oh my God. And this is what I talked about, like, my studying over the weekend. I've been just in it with the Bible and just really understanding the word. And man, a shout out to Myron Golden. If anybody wants to check out Myron Golden, I love watching Myron Golden, because he talks about a lot of the same stuff that I do, but he is a multi-millionaire. And so he's several steps ahead of where I'm at right now. And I love hearing what he's saying. But what I'm really diving into and understanding, because I followed Myron for a couple of years now, and until I started opening up my reticular activation system, right? Until I started following and getting into my Bible study, walking my path with Jesus, opening up my faith, and really understanding the success principles behind the Bible, I now start to understand that Myron's whole program, his whole system is based around the Bible. In fact, as I'm doing more and more research, I'm finding a lot of just content around the Bible and success principles, and him talking about how he's been a success in life because of these principles in the Bible. And one, just looking at all the way back in the beginning, in Genesis, there are so many trials and situations where you have to walk through fear. You have to have complete faith, right? You look at, and this is something that we've dove in, and I'm listening to from Myron, so not to steal his content, but you look at someone like Abram, for example, whose name meant father of many, walking around the father of nobody. And God made him a promise that he would make him a father to many, and he's 75 years old. And through this time, 10 years pass. So he's creeping into his mid 80s with this promise that God made him that he's going to one day be a father to many, right? He's got to go through hard times. He's got to go through all of this, like, uncertainty, and just have faith that's going to happen, right? And so there's so much that goes into that, but just we got to have that faith that's going to work out. We got to go and look at, okay, all this stuff is happening. Where is my opportunity? I know I've shared this story in the past, but during COVID, when all my clients were calling me and telling me that they had to put me on hold because their businesses were shutting down, I started to panic and be like, oh shit, I'm a business that I'm serving small businesses and they're all shutting down. What am I going to do? I started to really get anxiety around the circumstances, right? The circumstances that are going on around me. And then I got an extreme amount of faith. And this was before I did my faith walk. And, again, this is just relatively new. But what I didn't realize is I was on God's journey before I really realized it. And so it's really cool. But just having that faith and understanding and being like, okay, wait a minute, where is the good in this? Where is my opportunity? If so many entrepreneurs are struggling and they don't know what they're going to do and they have uncertainty, what is my superpower and what do I bring to the table? How can I empower them, right? Because it's all about empowering. And empowering sometimes feels uncomfortable, right? I've told the story about my client that I told you to stop being a pussy, right? And he wasn't even a client at that time. He became a client because those words changed his life. It wasn't the kind thing to do. The kind thing to do within that group, if you go back and hear the story, was everybody in the group was saying, "Oh man, maybe you should, just take a break, or maybe you should go and message people on Facebook or put some posts out there." And it was stuff that it was not the hard stuff and the things that he actually needed to do to move his business forward. I had to give him the slap in the face. And the reason why I did is because I was watching these people be kind and they were leading him down more failure, right? And so this is going to be a really short episode, but I just wanted to get on again, these two situations. We got to really watch our mindset, watch what it is that we're talking about. This person this morning had no idea the things that she has been collecting and unloading to all of us. And I totally get it. She needs to unload it to somebody. Somebody needs to understand. There's a lot of emotion there. But once we understand, and believe me, we understand, we see the picture clearly. I know that the things that she was saying are valid hurdles. However, where's the opportunity, right? Because if we sit here in this garbage and we just say, "Woe is me," and am I going to get down in the pit and I'm going to cry for you too? Then I'm not doing anything for you, right? No, my job is to get out of the pit and challenge you and saying, "Hey, great, I get it. All these things, I've been through all these things too. But if we stay down here and cry about it and we sit and collect all the reasons why we're down here, it's just getting heavier and heavier and heavier. And it seems like I'm never going to get out of this pit." And so instead, start looking at, where is the beauty here? And so I started pointing out things to her that she had and opportunities that she had that I saw that she wasn't seeing because she was so stuck in the crap. She was so stuck in that hole and it was holding her down. So my goal again, let's get out of that hole, right? Let's start to see the things that we can't control and stop focusing on those things. What can we do in spite of these things? Let's eat those fucking faces, right? And that's what Eat Faces is about, is what can we do that is not within our control, right? Instead of sitting here focusing on those things that we can't control, and man, now we're really stressed and now we're really depressed and now we're really down. We lost all of our energy. Where is my opportunity in this? And that's all I'm saying, y'all. So short episode this week. I hope you get a lot out of these stories and you can go and eat those faces and have that faith that things are going to work out, because they're going to work out for you.